So what's going on, guys? It's Jamie, it's speedboxing. Make sure you guys subscribe to this channel before you click on to any of the videos. Also comment below in the comment section if you guys have any opinions on what I'm saying in any of the videos. Like always, it's appreciated if you guys could drop me a quick sub or two on my channel. So the World Boxing Super Series semi-final fight between WBA Super Middleweight Champion George Groves and IBO Super Middleweight Champion Chris Eubank Jr. now has a date and a venue. The fight will be held on February the 17th in Manchester at the Manchester Arena. So yeah, very interesting that the fight's being held in Manchester, because a lot of people felt that the fight will be held in London because that's predominantly where both men fight. Obviously, George Groves is from Hammersmith in London, and you've got Chris Eubank Jr. who's from Brighton. So yeah, very interesting that the fight's going to be in Manchester, but I still expect this to get a big turnout. A lot of people are going to watch the fight on pay-per-view because it's an ITV box office pay-per-view and stuff like that. Like, I expect this fight to do good numbers in terms of people at the actual fight and pay-per-view numbers, because both guys are pretty well known in the UK in terms of boxing and stuff like that and fan base. And Chris Eubank Jr. has built a fan base over the past couple of years. Him and his dad, Chris Eubank Sr., have obviously pulled a lot of antics outside of the ring and inside the ring. They're brash, they're arrogant, they're cocky. That's how a lot of people see them. And they're like Marmite at the end of the day, because you either love them or you hate them. And the same can be said about George Groves. Like, a lot of people love George Groves, a lot of people hate George Groves, but people are still going to tune in and watch this fight, even if they don't like the guys, you know what I mean? Like, even if they don't like a certain fighter in this fight, people are still going to tune in and watch it. And this is a very interesting fight, in my opinion. Like, I feel like this fight's a 50-50 fight, because a lot of people are rocking with Chris Eubank Jr., saying that he's just going to be too fresh for George Groves, that he won't be able to handle the heat and stuff like that. But I understand why people are saying that, because he's very good on the inside. Chris Eubank Jr., he's got a very good punch selection, he's got great athleticism, great engine and stuff like that, and he's very quick. But you got George Groves, who's got a fantastic jab, very experienced, hits harder than Chris Eubank Jr., mixed it at a higher level, he's a better technical boxer. So I see this fight being a 50-50, and I'm very interested to see how it's going to play out. This is a fight I'm genuinely looking forward to, unlike the Bellew Hay one that was recently cancelled. I am looking forward to this fight. I think it's a very good fight. You've got George Groves, who is a current world champion, and you've got Chris Eubank Jr., who a lot of people think is reaching his peak right now in his career, and he's going to take this world title off George Groves. Like, I think if this fight happens at distance, I think George Groves has the advantage. But if the fight's on the inside and you got to give Chris Eubank Jr. the advantage, because I just see George Groves being a better fighter from distance. He's got a better jab and stuff like that. Like, Chris Eubank Jr. doesn't like someone who moves and stuff like that. Like, George Groves, he hasn't got the quickest feet or anything, but I think he can do things that can throw Chris Eubank Jr. off his game, like that sniper-like jab. He's a very good counter-puncher, George Groves. I think he does have power to get Chris Eubank Jr.'s respect. I know Chris Eubank Jr. thinks he has a granite chin and stuff like that, but Carl Froch thought that. Carl Froch had a granite chin. This guy was hit on the chin many times in his career and didn't move. But as soon as he felt the power from George Groves in that first round, in that first fight, he was down, and he was not expecting that. So I don't think Chris Eubank Jr. should take George Groves' punching power lightly. He shouldn't come in there with no defense or anything like that, trying to get on the inside, throwing bombs and stuff like that with his high work rate, because if he gets caught, he could be hurt in this fight. And I know he thinks that he's got a good chin and George Groves won't hurt him, but like I said, Carl Froch thought that, and he got the shock of his life when he was down in that first round, and so did a lot of other people. Like, they've never seen Carl Froch go down like that before. I know he was knocked down by Jermaine Taylor, but it wasn't a heavy knockdown like that. So Chris Eubank Jr. needs to be careful. I think he needs to be more defensively minded. Like, he has got a very underrated defense, Chris Eubank Jr. It's better than what people think. Like, he can slip shots very well and stuff like that, Chris Eubank Jr. But George Groves is not the kind of guy who's just going to walk forward like many of his opponents. George Groves is one of these guys going to wait for you to commit, and then he's going to hit you with a counter punch. Like, we saw it when he fought Jamie Cox in his last fight. Like, Jamie Cox, everyone knows Jamie Cox's fighter. He's a pressure fighter. He likes to come forward, likes to put a lot of pressure on you. He was throwing punches, and George Groves caught him with a huge shot to the body that even gave me, like, even winded me a little bit. that shot was a fucking brutal shot, and it took Jamie Cox straight out. So I think Chris Eubank Jr. needs to be careful, because I know he thinks he has an excellent chin and stuff like that, and he might have an excellent chin. Like, he's never been down or hurt really in his career, Chris Eubank Jr. But I'm telling you now, if George Groves hits him to the body or something with a shot like that, where he hit Jamie Cox with, then he could be down and he might not be able to get up. But George Groves as well, he hasn't really got fantastic stamina. So if the fight ends up on the inside and Chris Eubank Jr. is wearing him down with work rate and stuff like that, that could be a problem for George Groves. So we can't really allow Chris Eubank Jr. to get on the inside, because if he gets on the inside and starts throwing uppercuts and shots to the body and just a very good punch selection, then I think George Groves is going to be in trouble and he could possibly be stopped in that fight. So I don't know how George Groves is going to be able to handle the pace of the fight. But George Groves is a very tough man. Very, very tough man. And ever since that loss to Carl Froch, a lot of people are saying he hasn't really looked the same. But even though he hasn't really looked the same in terms of what he did before the Froch fights, because before the Froch fight, he was very fresh and stuff like that. He was looking very good in his performances against the likes of James DeGale and Paul Smith and stuff like that, Noe Gonzalez and Glenn Johnson. But after the Froch fights, a lot of people felt that he wasn't really the same. He had that loss to Badu Jack on a split decision. He was dropped in that fight. But even though he hasn't really looked the same, he still managed to get to a world title. He still managed to pick up a world title just from pure determination and just really grinding fights out. Like we saw it when he fought Edward Guttenek and Martin Murray. Like he grinded in them fights. Same in the Fedor Chudinov fight when he won the world title. So people can't really deny George Groves' heart, because he's got a lot of heart. And it'll be interesting to see if Chris Eubank Jr. has the cojones and the heart as well if this fight gets rough, because George Groves can make a fight rough. Like, if you work into George Groves' hands, then he can make a fight very rough, and if you try and stick it on George Groves, he can make a fight very rough. Because like I said, Carl Froch tried it. Carl Froch, you know his style, very aggressive. He's going to come forward and try and take you out and stuff like that, similar to a Chris Eubank Jr. can be very flat-footed at times, will stand in trade and stuff like that on the inside. That's what Carl Froch like to do. And he tried to do that against George Groves, and like I said, he just ended up on his back. So even though George Groves isn't really the same fighter, he's still got that punching power. And a lot of fighters have found out that you just can't come in and try and blast him out of there and showing his power no respect, because then you can get hurt. And George Groves does have very good power for a super middleweight. Like, people like Martin Murray have even said that George Groves hits harder than Gennady Golovkin. So, you know what I mean? And Martin Murray's been in with both guys. Martin Murray was battered for 11 rounds by Gennady Golovkin, and he said that George Groves hits harder. So, you know what I mean? But the fight is very interesting. The fight is very, very interesting. It's all going to come down to who wants it the most, in my opinion. But I can understand why a lot of people are favouring Chris Eubank Jr. because obviously he's the fresher fighter. He's the younger fighter. He's the fighter who's on a roll, whereas George Groves, yeah, he's managed to pick up a world title and defend it against Jamie Cox. But that fight against Jamie Cox, he really had to work in that fight. Like Chris Eubank Jr.'s quarterfinal against Yildirim, that was a very easy fight for him. You know what I mean? That was a walk in the park. Like, he just dominated Yildirim for the 3 rounds and then knocked him out. But George Groves, he had to really, really work in that fight against Jamie Cox. He was winning the rounds and stuff like that, in my opinion, but he was working like every minute of that round, and he managed to get that knockout. And a lot of people felt if that fight went late, then he could have got stopped by Jamie Cox. Like, if Jamie Cox just would have paced himself and tried to get him down the stretch, he could have beat George Groves. And maybe Chris Eubank Jr. will take a similar approach. Maybe he'll look at that fight and think, you know what, I can't go out all guns blazing in the first couple of rounds because I could get caught here and took out early. But if I bide my time and just make it a bit of a chess match with him and not engage with him and stuff like that, and then try get him late, then that could work to Chris Eubank Jr.'s advantage. But like I said, Chris Eubank Jr. isn't the best technically boxer, so how long can he play chess with George Groves without being outboxed and stuff like that, and getting frustrated and shut down and stuff like that? Because George Groves will just jab his head off if he tries to stand and box with him and stuff like that, and that could take a lot out of him, and he might not have a lot left for the later rounds. But against Billy Joe Saunders, he was dominated for the first 6 to 7 rounds, but then he managed to come on strong. So he has done it in the past. So yeah, very interesting. The fight has now got a date and a venue. It's getting closer, February, so it's only a couple of months away. It will fly by. Time fly by nowadays. So it's gonna fly by, and before we know it, we'll be sitting down and we're gonna watch this fight play out. And it's a fight I'm looking forward to early in 2018. So yeah, comment below in the comment section. It's JM.